Welcome back to another episode of the Time Rich Tradie. So, one of the biggest objections we hear from builders isn't actually about cost. It's this: James, I'd love the extra help, but I just don't have the time to train someone. So, today's episode is going to completely change that belief. So, our guest today is actually Janelle. She's a tradie VA talent. She's been working with Enliven Housing, who are a property developer, and they specialize in disability housing and property management. Now, when she joined the business just a few months ago, their national project manager, Samuel, was spending 3 to 4 hours every day buried in reports, defect management, email follow ups, project admin. Today, those responsibilities completely off his desk. Project reporting is happening every month. Communication across the business has improved. Samuel has more time to improve the business instead of just keeping up with it. Perhaps the most impressive part, and we're actually going to delve a little bit into this now, is Janelle just didn't learn the role. She became confident enough to help train other team members after only a few months. So today we're actually going to talk about how exactly that happened. So Janelle, welcome to the show.
Hi, James. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
So good to have you here. So just let's run through before joining Enliven, give the listeners just a bit of an idea of what your experience you already had working with builders, construction. Was there any systems, software, or terminology that you were already familiar with before you came on board?
To be honest, James, I don't have any experience with builders, either construction businesses. However, my past work experience actually helped me be familiar with how the work flows. I was once an operations manager for a service-based company in the US, and also as an admin assistant for an HVAC company in Australia. So I'm already familiar how the business works and the workflows, how it goes, and tracking jobs from start to finish. And also, being a mentor at Trady VA actually helped me a lot because I was able to handle a couple of mentees or talents that does support builders or construction businesses. So those are the things that actually help me be familiar with Enliven or this business.
And so, given that, as we can see, you're coming in, it's not like you already had the jargon off the top of your tongue, but within a couple of months, when you get the right person and give them the right foundations, you can see where you've arrived to. Many builders worry that they'll have to teach a VA everything themselves from scratch. So what would you say to someone who's assuming that?
Maybe I can say that sometimes our fears are much bigger than reality. So um, don't let your fear consume you. Just lay out your plans, your goals to your talent, and just give a sit down with them, have a honest conversation. What are your goals? What are your plans for the future? And then trust them. Trust your talent because a talent or a VA that feels being trusted by their client will gain confidence. And actually, that confidence will allow them to, grow and, take more and figure things out on their own rather than waiting for or needing constant instructions from their clients.
I love two things there. Seneca, we suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality. So true. And I can speak for that myself. A number of times you spend so much time worrying about what's going to happen without when things happen, that's 10%, right? Which is awesome. But the other thing you mentioned, which I really want to circle back on, is that idea of give them the outcome, the ownership, the trust, and then allow them to be able to fill the rest in, right? Because
Mhm.
when the why is strong enough, the how is easy, right? And that, especially when you got the right person. And I think most, well, not just builders, but anyone trying to delegate is
Mhm.
thinking so much about how do I tell them how to do something, where, the how, you can find that stuff out on YouTube. But if you can
Yes.
get clear enough on the why, what's actually required, the outcome, and then, like you said, allow that trust and giving that ownership, it's amazing where that'll take you. So really, really good advice. So let's get tactical. Walk us through your first week.
During the first week, it's kind of bit slow because it's more on learning and observation. So we had our daily meeting. Sam and I had our daily meetings during the first week, and on that first week, he teaches me or he taught me how the process works or how it is being done, and he laid out the plans. What are the things that he needed help with, and then I do Komodo videos since we don't have a Eva app before, so I still use Komodo. So I record myself doing the same process that he taught me and showed it to him. And once he approved those videos, meaning he already knew that I know how to do the process, and that's how our first week looks like.
Nice. And so that's just to give people an idea, even on the first week, which is essentially, yes, like you said, the focus is about context.
Mm-hmm.
But with a simple enough workflow, you can start to let go very quickly. That
Mm-hmm.
idea of just outcome, just do it once, record it, show us how it's done, and then get that feedback loop. Say, yep, that's awesome. And then that's where the ownership starts. So, Samuel had mentioned he was spending 3 to 4 hours every day just keeping up. So, how did you decide and prioritize which of those tasks or task groups you would take ownership of first?
When we had our meetings during our first week, so I actually look for the repetitive task that actually doesn't need his judgment personally or every time. So those repetitive tasks are the ones that I took in initially or at the very first. So those tasks would be, like answering the emails or chasing up photos, progress photos from the builder. So those things are repetitive, and but it actually doesn't need or requires his full attention. So those are the things that I took off his plate at first.
I love that, right? So, take off the things because if you're taking off something that requires authority, there's still that the weight and the pressure of that authority that still lays on the person delegating. So, we call them green lights, right? The things that are green lit for you to be able to do, take off those things because they are pure time and headspace because that task is now completely gone. Taking off those first, great idea, right? To do that before laying into the juicy stuff that needs it to be kind of authorized and still sits Samuel as the bottleneck, right? So let's talk about the reporting. He talks about that also, how um, reporting can easily become repetitive. How do you make sure that information stays accurate while still working efficiently?
We actually use templates so for our reporting, and that way we can make sure that we are a standard or we are uniform with every detail that we are sending out to our business clients or to our business partners. And also I make sure that every information, every document is logged in and uploaded in our SharePoint, so I can also take a look every now and then to cross check what I have in my report. So those are the things that I do to make sure that we do have accurate information in all of our reportings.
Awesome. And one of the first wins, other than reporting and those green light tasks, was producing the monthly project update. Right, the
Mm-hmm.
business had always wanted, but they'd actually never had time to create. So this is, we'd had those repetitive tasks, obviously things that he was doing, taking up time.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had, the reports, which is that transparency. But this is around the things that, they do, especially with people in this industry. There's a lot of unclosed loops, things that they're on their someday maybe list that they just haven't been able to get done. So how did you build that process that really didn't exist, to be fair, into your routine?
During our first meetings with, or during my first meetings with Sam, he mentioned that this is something that he really wanted ages ago. So I asked him the importance, why it is actually needed. So the importance on why we need to have them. And I understand the reason behind that. And I just have to know the importance, the context, and the deadline that when should be this updates be sent out. So from there, that's the time that I took the initiative to do the progress reports in a monthly basis. So consistently now it's working fine. It's now flowing. No need for Sam to remind me to do the reports because I know the purpose of these reports. I know when the deadline would be, so it's already there. I automatically do it without him reminding me to do it.
And what I love here, this is exactly what we were talking about when we were discussing that idea of giving the outcome and
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to know the how. The idea that, just to lay it out, like you said in the beginning, just lay out what your needs, what you, the outcomes that you want to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
and then allow your talent to actually help build them into their routine as opposed to needing to have it perfect. What do they say? Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. That's what this
Mm-hmm.
is. Lay it out, which is exactly what he did, right? And then let you come to them, right? Now let's talk because the nuts and bolts, the software. Often people say, "Oh, I need them to have experience in blah blah blah, this exact software, etc." But tell me what platforms that you regularly work with today in
Right now,
Sam.
we are using SharePoint for our document control, and then we have MS Teams for our communication. We also use Outlook for other, supplier and business communications, and Builder Trend, Procore, and VisiBuild for our builders. So that is where, or that is what those are the softwares or applications that we use on a daily basis.
And how many of those were you thoroughly experienced with
Familiar.
before you started?
I'm only familiar with the Outlook for the emails and yeah, and MS
Right.
Teams, just
There
those,
you are,
but
right?
I'm not
But
familiar with
how
others.
quickly were you able to get yourself up to speed to become confident using them in day-to-day work?
To be honest, it was quite quick because nowadays, since we do have the internet, so everything is on our fingertips. So we just need to use our resources, our available resources. We have YouTube, we have AI, Chat GPTs. I specifically use Claude AI. For me, it's the best one. So I use those platforms, to help me be familiarized and to help me grow using this softwares that I'm actually not familiar with.
And I love hearing this because it's something that comes up so often. And they're like, oh, but I want someone who's had the experience. I'm like, do you? Because if they're going to come with years of experience using it badly and they
Mm-hmm.
took them 3 years to get to know them, do you want someone who takes 3 years to get to know? Or do you want someone who's proven that they can pick up stuff so fast it makes your head spin and learn stuff quickly? That's the person you want. Experience. Don't never let, well, we call it stack experience. Never let
Mm-hmm.
stack experience get in the way of a great working relationship because like you said, knowledge is cheap. Between Claude and YouTube, you've got everything you need, right? It's knowledge is cheap and getting to learn these things is more about clearly knowing what you need to get out of them. You can find out how easy. So another great example of that. And to be honest, that breadth of software you're using is, if you can do it with that number, then I think a lot of our clients who have half of those number of tools, right, they'll be absolutely able to do it. So when you do come across software you haven't used before, just,
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned Claude, but what is your approach to learning it without constantly needing to go back to the client and ask for help? Just walk me through that.
I go to YouTube for tutorials. So I watch for tutorial videos. And since I already have logins with the software that I'm new to, I do my navigation. So I try to navigate the software with my understanding on how it is being done based from YouTube. And then I also checked Claude for some tips and tricks on how to make things faster or how it will help me be efficient using that tool. However, if I genuinely hit a wall, I will ask Sam specific questions on how to use it or how to do it. So those are the things I do for me to learn new softwares or new applications.
Great flow. Easy to duplicate. Like I said, just get in there. Basics first. Nice. Then running Claude to help you kind of to customize it to your experience. Really good. I want to circle back a little bit to a really important word, which underlies a lot of the, I guess, barriers of entry for builders getting into this, and I guess letting go, which is that word trust, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they say about, can they talk to my clients? Can they talk to my builders, my suppliers? How can I trust them X with, those relationships? But Samuel mentioned very specifically in his case study that, you now communicate directly with builders, suppliers without needing them
Mm-hmm.
involved. How did you build that confidence in those relationships?
It actually started gradually. So first, Sam CC'd me to all of his emails to these suppliers, and also he made an introduction that I'm the new admin officer for Enliven, and any inquiries or any communication that they need with Sam, they can just go through me. So with that, I was able to start to build my confidence and. Replying to them, I started, drafting responses first and having it approved by Sam, since I'm not yet familiar on how the tone he would like to have talking to these suppliers. And once I know, or once I already knew how he wanted it to be, so that's the time that I started communicating to them directly. I took the ownership already.
Beautiful. Those two things, which I'm going to just summarize really well for listeners, which is the first one, you must start with authority.
Mhm.
Providing it's that, face it till you ace it, fake it till you make it, whatever you want to say. It's you as the client providing that authority first. Say, this is who this person is. They have the authority here. They are the one you're going to communicate with. They're amazing. Giving that that container to work with, that's the first step. And it's so important. As soon as you say, this person's the first day, they don't know anything, and like, don't worry if they don't give you the right answer, come to me. That's always going to be the way it is. That's the container you're setting. So the first one is getting that authority. And the second one is safety. So you mentioned that at the beginning, you would draft, it doesn't matter whether you knew, didn't know, but you'd be able to draft something, get that checked off so that again, there's a safety. You can create whatever you like, but because it's not sent yet, right? You can have that safety of showing that initiative without that risk, right? Of it coming back and, someone getting upset or whatever, because you said something wrong and then
Mhm.
shutting them down. So create authority, create safety, and you'll find that confidence, like you said, which leads to that trust, comes out so quickly. So it's really great that you mentioned those two things. And one thing you mentioned before was that, and stood out, was your ability to then mentor another new talent. So what was it like moving from learning the role yourself to fairly quickly turning that around and being able to teach someone else?
It is very rewarding because, seeing someone succeed, knowing that you are the one who trained them, and hearing Sam saying that she's doing a great job on her position now, it's very rewarding. And it's not just, what I did, it's not just teaching her the steps or giving her. I actually gave her the context behind the steps. So I taught her why we need these things to be done, instead of just do this, do that, here are the steps. So no, I gave her the context, and good thing that she was able to understand everything the way I learned it from Sam as well. So Sam never actually had an instance to teach her during her onboarding. It was all me that handled her from the start. So it was very rewarding, and it's a great achievement for me actually.
I love it. Context eats content for breakfast. It's perfect. That's exactly right. You learn from the way you learned,
Mm-hmm.
which was you got the why and you got the outcome and you're given that ability to fill in the gaps. You then could trust your mentee to be able to do the same with that context, which is amazing. And there was another word that Samuel used, and I wanted to get your version of it. He said that one of his biggest improvements wasn't just the time saving, it was creating transparency across the whole business. Walk me through what that means for you and how you think you helped create that transparency across the business.
The transparency that he is talking about is the project updates, because we are the one, Sam and I are only the ones receiving those updates from the builders. So the other stakeholders, business partners are not aware of what's happening. So with me having the document control, meaning to say, uploading all the documents that we receive from our builders, uploading it to our SharePoint, and creating the progress updates or the monthly project updates that we send out to our builders. That's where the transparency comes in, because they are now aware of what's happening with the project. Where are we at the project right now? Because of the updates that we are sending to them monthly basis, and also not just monthly but on a daily basis, they can see it up to date on our SharePoint. So those are the things that I
Perfect.
did that made this transparency and the project updates possible.
Awesome. Awesome. I think that's something that everyone can learn is getting that transparency will create so much efficiency, confidence, and trust in your organization. If you can build that out so all stakeholders know, they don't need to ask. That's less communication, less time, less wastage. It's brilliant. Well done. Look, there's a
Exactly.
couple of lessons across this conversation that I really want the builders to take away from today's conversation. First is that hiring support, getting help, isn't about finding someone who knows every single
Mhm.
tool that you use inside and out or as a mini me, right?
Mhm.
It's actually about finding someone who understands you,
Yes.
asks great questions,
Right.
and can take ownership. And then about you on the other side, being able to let go, give outcomes, and let them do it. Let them have that ownership. And it's that
Trustworthy.
relationship. And that's exactly what Janelle and Samuel have demonstrated is that two-way relationship. So within just a few months, she wasn't just handling reporting and defect management, communication, she was also helping train the next team member. And it's what's that potential of how quickly this can happen with those right environmental factors. That is a massive shift, right? So Samuel now spends his time improving systems instead of chasing his emails and updating spreadsheets. And the goal of delegation is to buy back your time so that you can leverage it and use it effectively, not just saving hours, but creating that capacity to grow. So, Janelle, thank you so much for sharing your story. And to everyone who's been listening at the moment, if you've been telling yourself, I'm not ready, I don't have time to train, when I've done X, stop it. Hopefully today you've seen that the right systems, the right onboarding, the right amazing talent, that problem is simply not a reality. And as Seneca and Janelle has rightly said, you are suffering far more in your imagination than in reality. So with that said, we'll see you next episode on the Time Rich Tradie. Peace out.